3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? It is Ash on Comics showing up here for a special edition broadcast. Who knows what the hell this is? It's a comic review that I'm doing live, and I got my buddy RDV, the real Dr. Venkman, except no substitutions. RDV, how you doing tonight?
I am doing great. Read this book twice. Let's be interesting chat about this.
hopefully, man. So this is Rorschach by Tom King and Jorge Fornés. I don't know if it's George or Jorge. You can never tell these days. And Dave Stewart. No one cares about Dave Stewart. This is a much kind of lauded book. I was not going to read this, quite honestly, tell you the truth, RDV, until you kind of were like talking to me behind the scenes on Twitter and stuff and being like, you should read it. Like, I was like, all right. So I sat down and read it, and I'm almost wishing I kind of didn't. What's your, without going into details, what's your kind of just quick take of the book?
Was Tom King writing a prequel to a Tom King story?
I don't know. Gotten olive in my mouth. I'm eating olives, jalapeno stuffed olives. I shouldn't do that while I'm streaming. That's pretty unprofessional of me. This is a book that, here's the thing about Tom King. Everything I've read of his starts off good. Miracle Man started off really good. His Batman run at DC, in my opinion, started off good. His Heroes in Crisis, I honestly think that first issue of Heroes in Crisis was really good. His Strange Adventures book that's still going on right now, that first issue I thought was pretty good. Mm-hmm. He always starts off, to me, it's like, it's not uncommon that it's like, oh, the first issue's out and it's pretty good, and people go, oh, it's amazing, it's good, Tom King normally sucks, and I'm like, no. The first issue is normally good. So I wasn't really surprised when I saw other people doing reviews of the book, and some people were really praising this.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, it's really good. And so I was kind of like, I've been there before. I know it's going to, my expectations is it's going to start off good, and it's going to peter off. And then you told me I should read it, and I was like, oh, I don't mind talking about it. Let's have something fun to talk about. Well, and I struggled to get through this book.
The reason I said I want you to read this book because I like how you break down books. You are just like Engelstein. You guys do not skirt any subject matter. You find something in there, you'll talk about it. If there's something in there that you like, you'll talk about it. You're not gonna sit there like, hey, I'm gonna sell you this book, go read it. No, give me a click, give me a like. No, you guys are honest. And sometimes you're brutally honest, and sometimes it's worth it. Especially with a Tom King book, you have to be brutally honest, because I don't want to sugarcoat a Tom King book. I don't think I could.
Yeah, and I was expecting to like this, and I didn't hate it. I didn't walk away going, that was stupid. But I did walk away going, was there any point to all that?
Well, I was going to say, that's a pretty good shot right there, how I felt reading it. I was kind of excited. I was like, yeah, and then I get shot in the face.
Well, I didn't quite feel that bad, but this was very confusing, this opening sequence to me, which I thought was a good opening sequence, because you see Rorschach, who's the title character, and he's running, and then you see him getting shot, which is kind of, whoa, it's the main character's getting killed, like right on the first page. What's going on? And then it cuts to this really cool shot, which is, there's a campaign, presidential campaign. Looks like they're at a, convention or something. And you see him bleeding out on the catwalk. And then it cuts to this. And this is your typical Tom King, just tons of dialogue and characters standing around, just talking drinks with straight faces. And I had to read this sequence of pages a couple of times.
Same here. Because I still have no idea, what does this take place in the 90s? Is this like modern age?
That is a great point, man. That was the same thing I was thinking, because you go rewind here and you're like, okay, something's happening. There's an event,
and
right? And then you cut to this page, and immediately the characters are talking about the event. So you think these characters are talking like this just happened. This, and then immediately, boom, now they're like talking. And then you get this stuff on the right, which is like in a different shade. And it didn't click to me at first that was a flashback. And so sequentially, I'm all lost. This is in 3 different times that this is all happening, but there's no narrative boxes to say like Monday, 5 p.m., boom, boom, or something to like set your mind in like a chronological time.
Exactly.
And then the next page would be like Tuesday, 3 o'clock, or, something like that, to be like, or just have like 2 days later or 5 days ago, or, something. So I know what am I reading?
Like, have the date and have the year, like, March 7th, 1985, or like, it was Tuesday,
And that's another great point, because we know that like Watchmen was set kind of in the 80s. It was a commentary on the 80s. So I'm thinking, okay, this is in the time of Watchmen. So as I'm reading it, I'm thinking this is Watchmen time. And then I get kind of halfway through the book and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't Watchmen time. This is like modern. This is 2020.
I felt bamboozled by that guy's haircut and sideburns. I was like, come on, is it the 70s?
Exactly. I was bamboozled by this. This cover is I think I was talking to Breen about, I was talking to someone about this. Like, maybe I made a tweet about it. Like,
I think so.
I hate that this is like 70s kind of like, ooh, look at, we're hipster 70s cool like style. And I'm like, Watchmen wasn't in this. It was the 80s. Why is it this 70s, like, just to be cool? And then this story is not even in the 70s or 80s. It's in 2020.
And that first page when it shows like the presidential thing with and the people standing behind him, and almost reminded me of like, is that Trump in 2016 with his family behind him? it's got that kind of thing too.
I get the feeling that yes, that this guy Turley is the guy. Turley.
Yeah. That
Turley is a analog for Trump.
Yeah.
Because we figure out through the comic book that this is the conservative candidate.
Yep. And
we figure out that they're investigating Rorschach, which the comic, and they're going to have some spoilers, guys, that we're talking about. The comic kind of alludes that this isn't Rorschach. Like, it's some copycat or something. And so part of the mystery is like, is it Rorschach? Is it not Rorschach? I don't know, maybe. And then in the investigation, they figure out like, oh, he's this liberal guy and he's want to take arms. And it feels very like today, like real politics. Like they're trying to make a commentary that there's this liberal guy and he hates the conservative guy and he was going to assassinate him and we caught him. And I was like, all right, I guess that can happen, but why do we need a Watchmen story for this?
There literally was a panel here. I remember, I forgot which one it was, but it was like talked about on the corner. It's like too many words, too many bubbles. I'm thinking like, are you talking about yourself, Tom? I forgot what page it was on. It was the upper right corner. It's all I know. I don't know which page, but I laughed when I read it. I was like, dude, that really is you.
This was a bit of a chore to get through because not a lot happens. It's very much like a mystery, pseudo noirish style book, and which is fine, but it plods along kind of slow. Like you can see here, the part that I'm on. This is kind of a flashback where the detective is like, one of the cops is telling his story. It's this guy in the hospital bed. And he's telling this other guy like what happened that night. And so it's like, look, we were going to investigate something. And like, look how many panels it takes for him to tell this idea of like, we walked up to a door and then we went to the door and then we talked some more. And then, finally someone kicks the door in. And then it's like, this should have happened in 3 panels, but instead it's 2 pages, 3 pages. And finally on the 4th page, Rorschach appears. And you're just like, that took way too long. And that's the action scene of the book.
Right.
This is the action scene. Bullets going through a doorway.
There is a Frank Miller. I don't know if that's supposed to be a nod to Frank Miller.
Yeah, I remember that. Where was that?
The guy's he's in the car listening to the cassette tapes.
Yeah. Oh, so that's another thing. So they had found these tapes, and again, at this point, I'm reading the story, and I'm like, wait a second. So these tapes are from the '60s, and like, what are we going to play them on? And I'm like, you can't figure. You're working with like the FBI, and you can't fucking play some tape reels.
Yeah.
Like, look, I wouldn't be able to play these in my house. I don't have a freaking reel-to-reel tape machine. But the Federal Bureau of Investigations doesn't have. Are you kidding me?
I found what page it was. It was towards the very end there. It's like one of the last few pages. You'll see like Rorschach on the left side on the red. So it's like a panel by panel, and it literally says nothing patterns going nowhere. A lot of nonsense words, boxes of it. I was like, dude, that's yourself.
Yeah. So here's the part that I'm on here, and this threw me off too. Again, keep in mind as I'm reading this book, I'm not really sure what time we're in.
Yeah.
And so I see in the top right corner here, you can see a pager. So I'm like, oh, this is 80s. Well, I actually say 90s.
Early 90s.
90s was like the pager. I was like, okay, cool. That's a kind of a way to, but it's not. I'm like, why is someone using a pager in 2020? And so then we get 2 pages of this whole reel-to-reel. They finally find a machine to play these tapes. And Tom King lets it go for 2 pages, not just 2 pages, 2 pages of 12 frames a pop. Look at how many frames are here.
The guy had a long distance to drive, okay?
Jesus. It's like he's listening to an Ash on Comics review or something.
Right? 2 hours before he forgets the comic.
Serious. And then we come over to the page and like, look at how drab. Like the energy of this book is just not here. This main character, who you see up on the top left here, he's just like nice sitting at a hotel room, and look at his body language. It's just sort of like depressed, and he's staring out the window, and it's raining and depressive.
And then we get Mel Brooks with the Heinz baked beans on the billboard.
Everywhere in the book is just like
there it is. There it is. Right there. Upper right corner.
Upper right. Nothing. Patterns going nowhere. A lot of nonsense. Words. Boxes of it.
Correct. When I saw that,
I gotta be honest with you. I glazed right past that dialogue, because by the time I got to this part in the book, I was like, the problem is 50% of what's being written in here is like meaningless. It doesn't seem to contribute to the story, so you just start tuning it out as like white noise.
It's a very, very slow burn to another slow burn probably issue. I don't know. And what's really makes me mad is they could have got somebody else to write this, and it's a black label. Black labels are post. Oh, it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna see a little more mature, more stuff. This was just like nothing really. You just see a guy he got shot in the eyes. Okay. Where's the rest of everything out? And it's like no. And like you said, you could have got anybody. You could have got Venditti. I would have took like even Rucka, man.
Well,
I think I get less word bubbles with Rucka at least. This is like Bendis and Tom King, like you just like teaming up on this book.
And I shouldn't harp too much on the word bubbles. It's not that there's a lot of words and I don't want to read a lot of words. It's just that they're not there for a reason. If you need those words, I've read wordy comics before. 2 of my favorite writers, Frank Miller, Chris Claremont, both can be very wordy, but you feel like you need those words and you're into the story. Here, it's just Tom King, just like waxing poetic or something. It's like he's just spitting out stuff to just like, look, I can write stuff. Like that box that you point out. Nothing, patterns going nowhere, a lot of nonsense, words, boxes of it.
So,
why is that there? What does it contribute to the story? It's funny. You're right.
Yeah, there were a few things I found from this interesting. They said like the guy, he's an original washed-up actor who locked himself away in his apartment, and he was Pontius Pilate. I was like, that is. I'm like, first I said I read it as Pontius Pilate, but memory because the freaking Bible lessons and all stuff. And I was like, wait, pirate? I did read it wrong. I was just like, okay, so. And then we find out it's not even freaking Rorschach. It's just some other guy dressed up as this. It's like, okay, I'm like, so I'm reading a comic about Rorschach. It's not even Rorschach. What?
Right. Yeah. I gotta I guess one credit I'm going to give to Tom King is Pontius Pirate. It's kind of a clever name that does seem it would fit in the Watchmen world. Like I could believe that there was once a Watchmen-esque character called Pontius Pirate. Okay, but so the whole thing is kind of misdirection. This issue is like, oh, so when they have the Rorschach character on the autopsy bench, they're trying to determine who he is. He's like an 80-year-old person, and they think it's this Pontius Pirate guy. And we're gonna spoil stuff here for you right now. I can't help it. It turns out, dun dun dun, by the end of the book, it's not him. It's actually Rorschach. That's the point of this book. You read through this whole book and you get to this last page, and it's Rorschach's dead, to be continued. And I was like, that's what I read. I don't know how many pages this is, but all of this words, no action, no character development, just this investigator guy that I don't even know his name. Did they say his name anywhere? This guy with the striped tie?
Oh, you're talking about the actual the guy on the screen? You're talking about the guy the cop?
Yeah, the guy who's on the screen right now.
I think in the very beginning then when he went to I think something like that.
There's this big conversation where these two guys are talking and you don't know who they are, so you don't care about the conversation. It's just words.
Yeah, I didn't even know the guy was even a security guard. I looked over there, okay, and I'm like, who's the other guy? Okay, he's apparently in the next panel, he must be a cop. He's got the classic, I got the coffee cup, wherever in the next page, and he got the mortician, the morgue. And I'm like, and I saw that, I'm like, that is, I'm like, okay, that looks like Rorschach, that looks like Walter. But then it gets confusing because they start talking about the girl and they talk about the other guy, the actor. So I'm thinking, okay, is that him dead on the table, or is that just some other old guy?
Well, right. Well, that's where the misdirection comes in, because the only reason you have to think that it's Pontius Pirate is because Tom King tells you. He's like, oh, it's Pontius, and you're like, oh, okay. I'd never heard of this guy before, so I guess it's Pontius Pirate. And then at the end of the issue, it's like, surprise, it's not Pontius Pirate. You're like, thanks.
And they said like the costume though that he has in there, he just gets him from a Halloween prop star. Look at it.
Right. Well, obviously, we find out that it's 2020. That's another thing.
Yeah.
And so Rorschach's like 80 years old, and so maybe he doesn't have his old costume anymore. I don't know, but I don't care at this point. Like that's the failing of this book. Mr. Striped Tie, whose name, if it was mentioned somewhere, I don't remember it or catching it. And it turns out that I feel like he's the main character because he's the only consistent character kind of throughout the book. You see him appearing, and he's just on the phone talking to people here and just like, oh, okay. And then you see him at the end. Rorschach's dead, to be continued. And I'm like, why do I care? There's no reason to be emotionally invested other than I think Rorschach's a cool character and I'd be interested in maybe someone telling me a cool story about him. But so far, I'm not getting it.
It's the page where they show it. It's like the shooters, the failed shooters. It's William Meyerson and Laura Cummings. I'm like, okay. But then at the end, it's like, that's the Rorschach you're saying, on a table. So I don't know where's, so the other guy shot him and then left? Maybe? It's just so weird. Like, it's Tom, what are you doing? Are you Bendis? Are you Tom? Are you like, are you senile? I mean, you dropped Frank Miller's name in here. Oh, yeah, thanks, Frank. Yeah, that's cool.
Such a pointless use of it too. I read that panel twice. It's like, wait, did he just say Frank Miller?
Yeah, I know, right?
So why did he? That can't be by accident.
And the way they use it too is like, that's like some guy is like, this is Frank Miller. I'd like to contact my grandmother and bring him and ask her to say hello at her name or anything. And it's basically, it just sounds like a bunch of people that went to like, someone like a seance to contact their dead loved ones,
Right. Those tapes, I don't know if those tapes are going to be important later, but they seem meaningless in the story. And you have to listen to all this stuff on it. You're like, oh, like what you just read. Everyone just heard what Venkman said. Frank Miller wants to talk to his grandmother. You're like, what does this mean? What am I reading?
But 2020, I think his grandmother's been gone for a while.
So let's wrap this review. What is your thoughts on? Okay, we kind of know how the story is. We both seem to be similar mindset. What's your thought of the art?
The art was decent. I'll give you that. You know, the artist cannot help what the writer writes. That's all I'm gonna say.
I agree. I think the art was actually very fitting. I thought
it almost seems like an Image art, right?
It seems like Image, but it also seems like it's a good choice for a Watchmen story.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like he's trying to copy Watchmen, but yet it doesn't seem like majorly different. You know, like it fits. And all these scenes are really well drawn. I think visually the storytelling, as much as he has to work with, is well done. There's lots of detail in every panel. So I was very pleased with the art.
I'm going through right now to see if I can find that guy's name. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah. So the art's good. Obviously, I'm showing it on screen. People can see the art for themselves and make their own judgments. We've pretty much talked at length. I don't know if there's anything more to talk about. Well, one thing I will say, I didn't see any SJW-isms, no wokeness. There seemed to be some political things. Like I said, it could be that Turley is like a Trump-esque character.
Yeah, we don't know. It's only the first.
But it's not overt, right?
Yeah.
Like I respect that. Like I'm okay with some political stories. If they had like a close-up of Turley and he was like all orange with blonde hair, I'd be like, oh,
yeah,
stupid.
yeah. If they had MAGA hats on too, but also...
right. But if he's just a similar type Republican guy, like whatever, like that doesn't really bother. Like I said, there was really no wokeness that I could see.
No. As I said, that was the only thing I close. I was like, it kind of looks like 2016 election, you know, and some of those stages. But hey, because we all know that Tom King, Greg Rucka, all these guys, they talk about all the time how they hate Trump.
Right.
So I was surprised it wasn't in this.
And Tom King is on record saying that this is going to be his sort of story about the Trump election. So
great.
So going into the book, I already kind of have that in the back of my mind. But like I said, whatever his intentions are, it's how it comes across on the page. And it didn't feel like it was trying to preach anything to me. And that's what I care about.
That's true, you know. But it was still, it's a slow burn, and it just felt like a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like, where's the story? And because I took you that many pages, 24 pages, to tell me that Rorschach's dead. And I still don't know why he's dead or how he's dead. I just apparently just got shot in the face. But who shot him? So it's like one of those mysteries. Like, I gotta figure out, okay. I'm like, I thought it was supposed to be about Rorschach being alive. So let's see his resurrection powers. I don't see myself reading the next couple of issues.
Yeah.
I'll just say again, this is, real quickly, this is my last thing. DC labels are mid-known. A lot of their books are known for their graphic adult stuff, action horror. Even Frank Miller would have had, and Sin City would have had much more action than this thing. If this is what you're going to get for the next couple books, count me out.
Seriously, I don't need to. I don't need comics to be action wall to wall.
The
only action scene is the bullets flying through a door. That's the only action in the whole book.
I wanted like Rorschach. He's always been like the Batman detective to me when he does detective stories. That's what I was expected from this. I'm like, okay, now some other guy is going to take up and just basically become the new Rorschach. Is that what we're reading here? The 2020 Rorschach, you know?
Who knows? We do know there is a new Rorschach from Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You're right. I'm with you on this. The book didn't really make much sense. I didn't see the point of the story. There's no indication of where the story is going. There's no characters to care about. The character that I do care would automatically care about, Rorschach, is dead on the first panel.
How much do you think Heinz Beans is getting a cut of this book sales?
How much of what?
The Heinz baked beans, because that's clearly a little billboard right there. I wonder how much they're getting a cut out of the sales in this book.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
It was the first thing I noticed when I saw that. I was like, wait, that's baked beans.
Yeah, so I cannot recommend this book. I absolutely, especially I think it's $4.99.
Something like that.
This is for people who are diehard Tom King fans. That the dude does no wrong. If you're one of those people, you're probably gonna. You don't even need me to talk about it. You're probably already buying every single cover. I don't have any interest to read the next one. Maybe if someone recommends it or says, "Oh, something's major change, you got to read it," I might, but probably not.
You're better off supporting Jay Lee and buying other books that he's done.
Right, for sure. I'm gonna give this 2 out of 5 stars. That's my rating. What would you, if you had to rate it out of 5 stars? One being garbage and 5 being masterpiece.
I give it 5 beers, and that's how much it take me to just tolerate it a little bit. no, it definitely it feels like a 2 stars. I mean, I'm still at this for someone who actually forced himself to watch Jessica Jones season 3 on Netflix. I might read the next one, but I have high hopes for it to be better than this, because unless they go straight to action, this is just like just setting it up. Because that's what I'm worried about when it comes to Pattinson one. I mean, it's gonna be all detective and no action. It's gonna be a Tom King story. Because I'm worried, but we'll see what happens. I definitely, if you want to pick this book up, go by all means. Don't take our word for it. Look it up yourself. But
at least you're going to be an informed buyer. That's all we can do for you. Try to make you an informed buyer.
Exactly.
With that, we're going to wrap up the review portion of the stream. Thank you guys for watching. This part will be edited for a playback, and then we'll continue on. We can just BS on live stream and whatever. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.